Hello everybody, Blue Dooley, and today we're not actually going to work on anything. What we're actually going to talk about in this video is tools. Not only tools for hobby stuff, RC trucks, but the tools I have for working on full-size vehicles as well, and all the tools I have for fabrication. Waiting for some glue to show up so I can do some work on the snowplow. And hasn't shown up yet at the time of this filming. So I thought we should do a video on tools so people who are just kind of getting into the hobby or maybe want to have some tools for working on their own vehicles at their house can kind of see where to start with, and I'll go over from my personal experience what I think you really need and what I think you can slide by on. It is not currently blizzarding outside, but the wind's still howling, so you're going to hear the garage door kind of flex a little bit from the wind. I did turn the main furnace off because it's warm in the house, and it always seems to turn on every time I turn on the camera, which is kind of a pain in the ass. So what I got in front of me right here is some of the tools I got for my hobby stuff, and there's some other stuff on the bench as well. Kind of go over all of that, and then we'll do the hobby stuff. I'll show you some of the stuff I got for fab work, and then we'll get over into the main toolbox. Kind of go over what I have in there. So let me grab you, bring you a little closer here. So this kit here is Pittsburgh Tools from Harbor Freight 34-piece precision screwdriver kit. Slotted, Phillips, Posey, Torx, and hex. The only problem I have with it is if you don't really crank down on this, the bits would actually slide in. So I really cranked the hell out of this and put the extension on it so I can just change them out that way. That's my only complaint. The bits are nice. It has, like I said, Torx, all of them. It doesn't have a ton of sizes in this one or this other one. But if the Allen set doesn't quite fit, the Torx actually usually fits kind of sometimes snugger on some of the Allen metric bolts. So I have used Torx bits in lieu of an Allen wrench to work on RC cars. This is a great little kit. Like I said, it pretty much has everything I've needed, but then I usually work on HPI, or I now have a Red Cat or Tamiya. This one, the wife got me from Hobby Lobby. It also does torque, flat, Phillips, metric, Allen wrenches, and then some specialty bits. Its handle is a little cheaper quality, but this whole set was only 12 bucks. I think this one was maybe 15, 16. This thing I've had since high school, so since the late 90s. Flat, Torx, Phillips, some square bits. It has served me well. And actually, I got this little cobalt screwdriver. And it has some Torx, 2 Allen, various Phillips heads, and some small flat or slotted head. I don't know where that one went. It's probably sitting in the office somewhere. But the handle's a little nicer, so I've actually been using this handle with all of these bits. For hobby grade stuff and automotive stuff, buy a nice set of wire strippers, cutters, and crimpers. Just makes doing that stuff so much better when you have a nice set of these. And even this one doesn't actually go small enough for the wiring of the Buyer sound and light kit, but works great for automotive stuff. But this is one of those tools. Maybe don't buy the cheapest one you could find. Buy middle of the road price. And this little guy I picked up at Ace, standard end metric. goes down to 4mm on standard, and what's the smallest size on, or metric? And 5/32 standard is the smallest. So I actually really like this for working in cabs. Just a basic little wrench. It does work on wheel nuts because the sockets aren't super deep or thick, I mean. You also, if you're going to do any fabrication, you should have safety glasses. And then these are sheet metal vise. But a good pair of vise grips will get you by, especially if anything is rounded off. So that's going to do it. These are kind of what I use mainly for hobby. I will use these in the cab of the truck if I need to work on something and need a smaller bit. But I have basically dedicated bits in my other toolbox for that. Now the bench that you see me working on, I built. We'll cover it. So the workbench, you can do a couple of ways. I know a lot of people don't have space for a workbench, especially a big workbench like this. I built this one for me, so it is built for my height. It's basically useless to anyone like my wife or my father-in-law because they're working up here. I built it so when I'm standing here, my arm rests flat on it. I'm not hunched over, because at least for me, hunching over doesn't make me want to work on stuff. And after a while, your back hurts, you get pissed off, and you don't want to work on stuff. So if you're going to build yourself a workbench, build it for your height, build it comfortable. The other thing that's nice about a workbench is you can bolt the vise down. And you don't need a vise if you're not going to do any custom fab work. If you're going to do like custom fab, having a vise and having it bolted to something sturdy, really the best way to use a vise. Personally, if you are going to do fabrication work for RCs, I would actually skip the handheld drill. Just don't get that. Get a drill press. This small little drill press, Harbor Freight, works fantastic. The thing about the drill press is if you don't have a workbench, this doesn't have to be bolted down. If you don't have a vise, it's better to drill on this. You have a lot more control of the speed, how much force you're using, and since the table can actually angle, you can get much more precision with a drill press than you can drilling with that. That has its place, but I think of the two, I would actually recommend the drill press as opposed to that. Especially for hobby stuff, you can get a small little vise that bolts to this table to hold, shafts, small parts, cross members, and then you can really slowly feed in. Most of them have a depth control, so you don't drill all the way through if you need to. And then again, if you don't have a workbench, you could put a towel under this on your kitchen table. Probably piss your wife off, but you could use this a lot easier at your kitchen table or anywhere really easier than you can that and that. I just think the drill press is the way to go. And on drill presses, drills, sawzall, angle grinders, all that stuff, you don't have to go buy the most expensive one you can. This was Harbor Freight, under $200. Spend a little more on your drill bits, because they're what do the cutting. Get you a little better quality cutoff wheel for your grinder. That would be where I'd spend the money. Buy a little higher quality bit, a little cheaper drill press, and then again, you're not going to tear the bits up in a drill press like you can free hand drilling onto a board while you're kneeling on the floor. And that kind of goes for any specialty tool. We'll kind of cover the welder and stuff. This little bench top sander, again, Harbor Freight. I did bolt it down because, again, I have a workbench. I can do that. That is the nice thing about a bench. I would actually, again, for hobby stuff, recommend the belt sander over the grinder, or benchtop grinder. And the reason is, I've heard it a few times from old mechanics and fabricators, but if you're grinding aluminum with the grinding stones, like in a grinder like this, they can get loaded up. The aluminum can actually get packed in here and unbalance these stones, and they'll come apart. And that'll lead to some injury. I don't know if that's 100% true or if it's an old wives' tale. But of the two, the benchtop sander is a little more versatile because you can get, sandpaper's cheaper than grinding stones. This thing is older than me. It still works great. It's a McGraw Edison. I don't even know if they're a company still. But I have both, and I use this for steel, and I pretty much use this one for aluminum. Any kind of fabrication work, you need C-clamps. This is a Craftsman bench. I've had it for a long time. It has served me really well, and it is actually now currently bolted to the wall. Because of my nerve problem, I leaned on it weird getting up one time and tipped it over. So it's secured to the wall. And it's built for an average person. I need to clean it up, but this was going to be kind of my wiring bench for like soldering, doing electrical component work and stuff. And then the bench I built is for fabrication. Air compressors. You do not need an air compressor at home, depending on what you do. I went with a bigger air compressor because I want to do some sandblasting and I want to actually paint the truck. So I got a bigger air compressor for that. This little Walmart one I got, 13 gallons, it served me well. The hose reel's nice just to kind of keep things tidy. Again, back over here to toolboxes. I've had the black one since 2001. It was a graduation present from my parents for graduating tech school. 13 drawer, holds pretty much everything I own just fine. This gray box and that top box were actually purchased together. They're also Craftsman. I bought it so I could put all my welding stuff on here and my welder. And then the top box is for my meter, my scan tool, test light, wiring connectors, heat shrink, some specialty tools are in it, along with just a ton of junk. But picks, feeler gauges, snap ring pliers, spark plug gauges, stuff like that. The end box, I actually have all of my textbooks from tech school in. The owner's manual for my pickup, Haynes manual for my pickup, all that stuff. I picked up this from Power Driven Diesel when I ordered the valve spring tool for the Cummins and the puller to pull the gear off the injection pump. This has been moved quite a few times, and I forget what happened, but I think one of the extensions or something rattled around and actually got caught up in the latch and bent the latch, so I couldn't get it open. But that's the only problem I've had. Sockets in the top drawer. I got my snap-on 1/2-inch drive torque wrench, and then I got two Craftsman beam style wrenches, which are, I'm pretty sure Grandpa bought in the 50s. They work great. Tons of extensions, 1/2-inch drive breaker bar and a 3/4-inch drive breaker bar. And again, this kind of depends on what you're going to be working on. RC stuff, you don't need all this. Automotive, yeah. and more. The bigger stuff is for diesel and industrial stuff. Got torques, screwdrivers, all the specialty drivers. Then we got standard wrenches, metric wrenches. Those are just Allen's. Metric standard T-handles. Vice grips, adjustable wrenches, random boxes of bolts, pipe wrench. Some pullers, hammers. What else do we got in here? We got ring compressor. And then the impacts. And again, Central Pneumatics, because I'm cheap. And actually this thing, when it came out, again, like 2002, the CP Turbo, I think was comparable to brake force as the snap-on and the Matco Air half-inch drive. Ratchet and some punches over here. Another set of 1/4-inch drive sockets. Here's the puller for pulling the gear off an injection pump of a 12 valve. And then, if you're really old school, a Justin impact driver. So this is an impact driver. You hold it and smack it with a hammer, and that actually is how you get the impact on it. Again, that was given to me by my grandpa. Most of my tools are from my grandpa. Tap and die set, metric. This is where I kept markers and some other miscellaneous things in. Coolant testers, filter wrench, some Loctite, and then miscellaneous crap. Some paint, some cleaner, some masks, a funnel, all that kind of stuff. The diagnostic scanner I have, it was a cheapie off of Amazon, serves my purpose. If you're working professionally, you probably want to get a little nicer one. Blue Point meter I got from graduating tech school. Voltmeters, I want to get a power probe. I've used one once and it's really handy. But for RC car stuff, you don't need one quite this fancy. You can get a little cheaper one just to check to see if you're getting voltage. And then wire connectors, a little test light, some jumper wires. Cotter pins are also in there. And then there's that drawer again. I did finally get me a self-darkening welding helmet. I joined the 21st century. And the Hobart handler 140 with an actual Miller MIG handle. Because when I bought this back in 2004, Miller owns Hobart. Hobart's a Miller with a different case. I think actually it's the old Miller stuff. So when Miller comes up with a new machine, the leftover parts from the old machines get a Hobart case. So it's cheaper, but it's still the same quality. Now you might be a Lincoln guy laughing at me, but you know what? It's a MIG welder, serves my purpose, that's what counts. This box is my welding box, so I usually keep my mask in the bottom drawer, wire spools in the top drawer, some cutters and some miscellaneous cutoff wheels and stuff in that second drawer. I do have a gas bottle for it, and you don't have to get the great big bottles. You can get the small bottles, because again, I don't do a lot of welding. It was stupid to buy a huge tank, because this tank I've had 1.5 years. I still haven't used it all. The Craftsman 10-inch bandsaw I bought because one of the places I serviced as a garbage truck driver in Casper makes bandsaw blades. So I had to make 2 blades for this machine to cut metal. I should have went with more teeth per inch. But for cutting sheet steel, I can feed sheet steel in pretty quick. It's super loud and obnoxious, but it works. Again, I don't think that's a necessary item. If you're doing metal fabrication, an angle grinder or a sawzall are pretty much all you need. I do have a Ryobi Dremel, and it is corded because, well, honestly, the cordless tools are handy, but when you don't use them all the time, the battery might be dead. So then I gotta wait to charge when I could just grab the one that plugs in, go drill a hole, and be done. Lower quality camera because the GoPro's doing GoPro things. I uploaded all the other footage and now it doesn't want to do anything because that happens sometimes. So since we're in the office, we're going to cover a couple of tools that I don't have out in the garage. And for starters, an X-Acto knife, RC hobby stuff, car stuff, good sharp X-Acto blade is super handy. And everybody knows a sharp knife is a safe knife. A pair of flush cutters. These don't even have a brand name on them, but they're super handy for cleaning up plastic parts or getting into tight areas to cut wires loose. A set of helping hands on a fairly heavy base, but these just have alligator clips on them. Super handy for soldering wires together. And I actually, since I got a new desk in the office, I've been doing soldering at my desk. My wife got me a Anbis pen or pencil style adjustable thermostat soldering iron. This thing works great on small stuff. It is discolored because I turned it up as high as it would go to try to do some battery connectors on an ESC. And it just doesn't get hot enough for that. So wouldn't recommend it for batteries, but servo extensions, light kits, under dash wiring harnesses, maybe automotive radio, not like for the thick gauge stuff, but the smaller gauge stuff, that worked great. They still make this badass, but this is a model 8200 Weller soldering gun. Dad had this in high school in the 70s. It still works awesome. You can still get tips for it. It is pretty hefty, and unfortunately, it's been dropped and damaged in a move, but it still works awesome. And again, you can find those new. I would go for professional advice, a basic, probably 350 to 450 piece mechanic set that most of the big chain stores have. Will get you started. You don't need a super huge box. And actually, it's been in my experience in the shops I've worked at, or any of the places I've worked that's had their own maintenance person or mechanic on site. The dudes with the most experience don't have the biggest toolboxes, and the dudes with the biggest toolboxes have really big tool payments. So I would actually, again, start out with the basics you need, and then kind of see what the people with a lot of gears in the field you're in have. Because, again, my personal experience, the shops always have had specialty tools. I've never worked anywhere they didn't. Or the really big stuff. The 2 different trash companies I worked for, all of the tools were those guys. But in one place it was just one mechanic, so the company bought all of his tools, basically. The other place, the big stuff, they didn't require all the mechanics to have. They had 1 inch and up available, so anybody could use them hanging up on a wall. You were just expected to put them back up on the wall when you were done with it. But yeah, the specialty tools, I think you'll find a lot of them old guys with a lot of experience don't own a lot of specialty tools. They made their own out of a cheaper tool. They just heated up and bent with a welder or cut off with an angle grinder and welded something onto it to make their own tool. So those are the guys I'd trust more for tool advice than the dude with necessarily the biggest toolbox and the most tools. That's going to do it for this video because I've rambled a lot already. Click the like button so helps out the video and my channel with the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe so you can see more content because the glue showed up for the tires today. We're going to do some tire modifications on the snowplow next video, and I believe I'm going to build me a new blade for it. It works, but I think I want to make some adjustments to it, and instead of trying to adjust that one, I think it'll just be easier and faster to cut out a new one because I still have some exhaust pipe left over, and that's what I actually made the plow blade out of. So that'll be coming up next video. And I also believe we're going to go to the Boise Roadster show next weekend if the weather's nice. So that'll come out in the video too. That'll do it for this one. Hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll catch you next time.